Hill Haviland, and we are with Christina Benjamin. And I always want to say Christina Benjamin author because that's what her name is on Facebook. So anyway, we are here to talk about her series, The Geneva Project, and her first in that series called Truth. How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. So I don't know if you want to get started right off the bat with questions precisely about the book in the series, or if you want to talk about your more about your author life first. Let's talk about the book first.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay. I would love to know, first of all, where you got the idea for your book.
I always get that question, and it's so hard to answer because I feel like it was just in my head, and I had no idea I was even writing a book when I sat down to write it. I just finished reading, I think it was the last book in Hunger Games, and I'd also finished the Harry Potter series and the Twilight series that year. And so I used to just read every day at work on my lunch break, and when I just ran out of those series to read, I was like, what am I going to do with my life, So I've always loved writing, and just, I don't know, I kind of lost track of time to do it. So I decided instead of reading on my lunch break, I was going to sit down and write, and I had no idea what I was going to write or that it was going to turn into a book. I just sat down and wrote, and the first 5 words I wrote were, my name is Geneva Summers, and that's how the book started, and I just kept following that voice that was in my head. So I like to say Geneva, her story was just in me, and she was screaming at me to just write it down.
So are you a plotter or a pantser or a combination of both? How did you start out? Let me start that way. Did you start out as a plotter? Pantser?
Yeah, I literally sat down and just went in the conference room and sat on the couch and started typing, and had no idea what I was writing. And I really like writing that way because I think just because I love reading, and when you write like that, you're reading it for the first time too, so you're kind of discovering it as a whole new idea instead of something that you already plotted out and you kind of know what's going to happen or what direction the story's going. I just let the characters kind of lead me, and since my characters have magic powers, it's really cool because it kind of doesn't limit what they can do or where the story can go.
Right. I feel the same way as a writer. I love to. I'm a pantser, but I have found that once the story grew and I realized how big it is, and now that I'm still unfortunately working on the second book, I haven't gotten it done. I have found that I kind of need to have some idea where it's going. So I'm not really a plotter now, but I do kind of have written down kind of the steps of what's going to happen, not in depth. Do you find that now that you've gotten more, well, you've finished all the books, right? Is the series done?
I finished 3, and I'm working on the 4th book, which is going to be the last one.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so there's still one to come because I've only read the first one. So did you find that you had to do a little bit of kind of plot or forecasting something?
Yeah, definitely. Like you're saying, when you're writing a series, you have so much to remember. It's kind of good to write that down, and just so you know what direction you're going in. I didn't do that with the second book. I just wrote it the same way I wrote the first one, kind of just discovering it as I went. But then when it was time to do the third book, I don't know, I think I decided I needed to take myself seriously, and I should really write it down and have an outline. So I went crazy, and I did like color-coded note cards for every chapter, the beginning, middle, and end, and I was like, oh, this is going to be so easy. But I hated it. I felt like I was always writing myself into a corner. The story was going a different way, but I'd see this note card and be like, no, but I'm supposed to do this. So I don't know, halfway through, I mean, maybe not even halfway through, but I ended up just scrapping the whole thing. It was like a waste of a month of writing out all these perfect note cards because I just went back to my whole pantser style, and that kind of worked better. But now starting the 4th book, I don't have an outline, but I just kind of have little notes of kind of where I think the story's going and key points from the other books to help tie in to this 4th and last book.
Do you have a clear set ending for the series that you're pushing toward?
I think I do, but it changes all the time, so not 100%.
That's part of the fun, I think, of writing as a pantser is that you don't know. And even though I wrote down some, basically, no, I wouldn't even say it's outlining because it's not. it's like you were saying, just some notes about what I want to come up in this particular book that I'm writing. And for me, it kind of helped because I've got the whole sophomore curse right now, as far as just it's kind of freaking me out, even though I released my first book so long ago. And I feel like it kind of helped me if I start freaking out about, oh my gosh, I don't know what's coming next, and can I still do this? No, 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 oh my gosh, and all this self-doubt. I can look and see, okay, well, the next chapter is going to be this, and then this, and then this, and then this. And I know in my heart I can change it.
Yeah.
So that's okay. But it has helped me to kind of keep writing and not get so stuck in the mind game that we authors all play. And I've heard this from, I don't care how many, a lot of authors, that they don't care how many books they've written. And these are people who have written many, many books, that they still have all the self-doubt going on. And I think that's interesting of us writers, that we still wonder. I wonder if other artsy crafts are like that, like the musicians and
Yeah,
the
I
painters.
think being a writer is the closest to being a musician. Is kind of like the two careers that I compare, because it's just so much creativeness, and you have that self-doubt, and then you're inspired, and then you're doubting whether it's good. And I would imagine it's the same way. Like if you release your first CD and everyone loves it, then you're working really hard on your second one, but then you're like, oh my gosh, are they gonna like it as much as the first one?
Right?
It's almost worse. It's so scary when you have one really well-received book out there. Then you're like, oh my gosh, do I even want to put something else out? What if no one likes it?
Yeah, because
Compared to the first one.
then there's expectations. And my book was the one that I wrote, the first of my series, was also my debut novel. So we both have, debut series out. But it is like the first one, there's really no expectations, are there?
No, yeah, you're just like, this was fun, and
Yeah.
maybe one person will read it, and that'll be cool.
Yeah, and then the next one is like, oh my gosh, people actually expect this to continue, and
Yeah.
then there are expectations put on it. So it's a mind game, man. It's a really, really big mind game.
And when I finished the first novel, it ended on a cliffhanger, so it really made me have to pay attention to how I was writing the second one, because not only is there people that have the expectation of what the first one was like, they've been waiting for the second book now because they want to know what happens, so that kind of makes it even worse. So it's like, okay, it really has to do some justice here.
Right. So the city of Lux, was it a very clear picture in your mind when you started writing the series of what it was going to be like?
Yeah.
The area around it, the forest around it and stuff. Was it a very clear image in your mind, or did it kind of grow as you wrote?
It was. It's kind of a combination of a bunch of places that I've been, and then all these dream places that I really want to go. Lux, in my mind, looks like Santorini, Greece, and I've never been there, but I've always wanted to. So I think that just subliminally is in my brain, like this beautiful city that I've always wanted to go to. So it's kind of like Geneva's city that she just strives to live in one day and be a part of. And then Hobie Island is beachy and also has a rainforest and volcanoes and stuff. So I kind of am imagining Hawaii or Costa Rica, and those are places I also want to travel and haven't been. But it was really easy to write all the beach scenes and kind of the historic parts of the book, because I live in Florida, so the beach was easy for me. It was an easy setting. It was one part that I didn't have the hard time of, building this whole new fantasy world. And I live in St. Augustine, so there's so much awesome history here and the forts and everything. So I kind of took a lot of ideas from that. So I did have a lot of clear pictures of all these different places that I tried to put together into one thing. And when I talk to kids at school, I always say, like, being a writer is the coolest, because it's the only place where you can take all of your favorite things in the world and put them together, and they can all exist because you write it that way.
Yeah, definitely. Since I haven't read past the first book, does the rest of the series stay on the island, or would that be a spoiler?
It's on the island. All the books are on the island. I think my plan is to have all four of them be on the island.
Yeah.
And they kind of just go back and forth between the first book's at the Trojan Center mostly, and then the second book is in the rainforest, and the third book they go back to the Trojan Center. And then in the fourth book, they're going to be kind of in a mix of places.
So, speaking of it, how did you Trojan?
Trojan, yes.
Trojan. Between the name of Trojan and the name the Lux and the Niv and the Nova and the Remy and the Journey and all the names that you have are really unusual. Did you want them to be unusual because you wanted this world to be so different, or is it just something that you enjoy? And did you have a hard time making sure? I mean, none of these names are difficult to pronounce except for the center. I just wasn't. I was pronouncing it basically the way you were, but I was not exactly positive either. So, did you put time into making sure that you didn't have difficult names to pronounce, or did you just pick them, or did sometimes the characters pick them?
Yeah, I love names. I wonder if there's like a name for that, someone who's obsessed with names, but I
I'm
have this
sure there is.
of names that I carry around with me, and every time I meet someone who has a cool and unusual name, I add it to my list. So when I'm choosing characters for anything I'm writing about, I kind of have that to go to. And like I said, Geneva just came to me just out of the top of my mind. I wrote down my name is Geneva Summers. I have no idea why, but that kind of just spawned the whole thing. And the rest of the names came to me pretty easy. A lot of them I took from the list. Some of them I just kind of got inspired. Nova in particular, I knew that his magic power was going to be fire, and I really wanted him to be well-rounded. So, like, he was very three-dimensional, rather than just picking a cool name and a cool magic power. I thought Nova is like supernova, so it's kind of like this magnetic, strong, powerful leader character, and he also has the ability to do fire. And I kind of describe his appearance that way, like he has golden blonde hair that is wavy like a flame. And so I kind of was alluding to what his power was going to be before people figured it out. So once I did that, I kind of kept that trend when I'm developing my other characters.
Have you ever had a character introduce itself when you're writing, since you're a pantser, and just be kind of like,
Yeah,
open the door into your imagination and says, okay, my name is such and such, and this is my role in the story. This is where you write me in.
definitely. I just have characters kind of just jump in. Sadie was kind of that character. She's in book 3, so you may not have read that far, but
No, I haven't.
she was a character that just I think as you're writing, you find your main character needs certain people to interact with and play off of. And so Geneva needed this Sadie character, so she just kind of introduced herself, and her name was Sadie, and I was like, okay, I guess I gotta figure out what this girl does in the story.
Right?
So it's fun when that happens, though.
Yeah, it's to me that's one of the biggest kicks of writing, especially as a pantser, that things happen and then all of a sudden something will happen in the story that gives you the answer to something that was coming later in the story that you weren't quite sure how you were going to get there, how it was going to work out, and you might come up with the answer for that writing dialogue or something between two characters that it's 20 chapters still away from that part. But it's fun. It's a kick to do that.
Yeah, character development is definitely one of my most favorite parts about writing because they really come off the page and become people that you can imagine. And when you spend this much time writing them, I feel like I know them. They're these people that my imaginary characters have kind of come to life now. But I really enjoy coming up with them, and I've had a lot of serendipitous moments kind of coming up with, like Geneva also is tied in with the Geneva Convention, but I didn't really mean it to. And then I decided she was going to be the Ava, and that's part of her name. And then the city Lux is spelled Lux, but Geneva's tattoo looks like LVX. And that also has all these meanings of kind of rebirth and enlightenment. And so it all kind of tied in, and I didn't know that, but I was writing it that way. And then as I started researching it, I was kind of figuring out, like, wow, this is all working together. So it's really awesome when things like that kind of work out.
Well, I kind of feel like though sometimes that's your subconscious working all that stuff out that you don't even know
That's,
it's happening.
yeah.
It's connecting the dots for you, and
Yeah,
creating.
your mind already knows that. It just takes you a while to catch up, and you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah, the writing process is so great.
It is.
Um, I mean, I think anyway. So I love the magic that you have woven into your book and the characters. Did you start out writing this book with the intention of it having those elements in it, or did that just happen?
Yeah, I think as I started writing, I knew that there was definitely going to be magic because, I mean, Harry Potter is one of my favorite series, and even though Hunger Games doesn't actually have magic or Twilight, it kind of does have that, ability to do things like that are supernatural. So I think I just love that type of reading so much that I was drawn towards writing something in that same genre.
Right. Did you put a lot of research into your magic?
Not really. Again, I think it's kind of like you're saying, you just have this background of the type of magic that works because you've read so many other books or watched so many movies, and it all kind of is the same. It's all this shared idea of what magic can and can't do.
Yeah, and I think that, and you may or may not agree with this, but I think as long as it doesn't even matter how far-fetched your magic might be in a book that you write, I'm not saying you personally, but anybody, as long as it stays true, as long as you're true to your world, how that magic works in your world, and you don't mess that up somehow by doing something that makes no sense, unless you give a reason behind it, I
Right.
think anything works.
Yeah. Even with magic, you have to have rules, and that's what's hard. Like you were saying in writing a series, because 4 books in now, I have to remember like who can do what and who knows about what, and
Yeah.
what are
Have
the
you
rules for
have
everyone.
you started doing a book Bible, even if it's just for you?
Yes, I have. I call it my codex, and it's kind of like a dictionary of all my made up words and magic powers and characters.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I wish I had started that. I'm starting it now with my second book, but I wish I had started that with my first one.
well,
I
that's good.
didn't know.
I didn't start it until like now, my fourth book.
Well, when I wrote the first one, I mean, like you, it's like, I'm going to just write this and it's just going to be fun. It was an escape for me because I had some really horrible things going on in my life that were making me a very, very angry person. And so I was like, I needed something to escape. And I just decided to try to do this. I didn't even know if I could anymore. And it was a blast, but I didn't know what I was doing, and I had no way of looking forward to know I needed to do that. I needed to write down these things. So yeah, now I'm going back and going like, okay, what is it that that person can do? I have to go
Yeah.
back and what I'm doing now is writing through. I want to write through the rest of the series and then go back and reread book one and make sure I have everything right and go on into and continue writing in my rewrites to make sure I've got everything right because I'm worried I don't. So it's a
Yeah.
scary process, but it is fun. Um, so tell me a little bit more about what character that you might be closest to. Do you have a favorite character? I know that's like picking a favorite child, but
I know. That's so hard because I have a lot of different favorites for different reasons. Um,
tell us about them.
Geneva obviously is a favorite just because the whole story is about her, and she's this underdog character that she's easy to root for. It's easy for me to remember what it was like to be that young age and just wanting to be a grown up and wanting to know more. And then as you finally start to have that coming of age moment and realize, oh, I'm leaving the fun of childhood behind, and so that means I have all these responsibilities. Maybe I was rushing this, too much. So I can relate to that of Geneva, and that just kind of makes me love her. And she's flawed, but she owns it. So I really appreciate that about her. And then Nova he's one of my favorite characters to write because I love his sarcastic humor. He's really fun. Um, and Journey has kind of snuck up on me. I really like Journey now, and he was kind of just a side character in the beginning, but he's this quiet, brooding guy who doesn't say much, but when he does, it's pretty powerful. So he's fun to write for too.
Cool. Are there new characters that are going to be introduced in the next books anywhere?
Yeah, every character, since I kind of change settings in each book, you get introduced to new characters in each setting.
Cool. Anyone that you're particularly enjoying writing, don't say what they do or anything because some of us
Okay.
haven't read further.
No spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers.
In book two, one of my favorites is Jovi. She's younger, the Geneva, and she kind of just looks up to Geneva as this role model. And this is the first time Geneva's had someone look up to her, so that's kind of cool. And she's become a fan favorite. Everyone really likes Jovi and wants to hear more about her. And then in the third book, Sadie is a character that's new that everyone really likes. And then throughout all the books, there's Niv. He's kind of my favorite. I have a soft spot for Niv, the Marmouse.
I
Because
love the Mouse.
I know he's so cute.
We
He's
have
like
to talk more
inspired by
about the
my
Mouse
dog.
in a minute.
So
So tell me about this Mouse. How did you come up with him?
um really the all the animal characters were inspired by animals I actually own or know.
Really cool.
So I used anagrams for the names of the two tar cats. Khan and Rhea are my actual fat house cats, Hank and Ari. And they're just big black and white house cats that hang out with me when I write, and I thought, I'm going to put them in the story. And then the same thing with my dog, Vince. We call him Vin for short, so he became Niv. And he was our rescue, but we always say that he rescued us. Like, he's just such a sweetheart, so I had to put him in the story.
Absolutely. Do you have anything in particular that you find helps you get your muse working better, like music or reading other people's books or taking long walks, anything like that that you like to do to get your mojo motivated, your muse
Yeah,
motivated?
it's weird. I always get inspired either when I'm driving or in the shower, which are the two like most inopportune times to stop and write something down.
You have a little recording device on your phone?
I do, and now I have a waterproof case, so I take it with me even in the shower.
You take it in the shower with you. That's awesome.
I can put notes in there. But I'm definitely really inspired by music. So I have a playlist that kind of inspires my writing. But I have to listen to it before I write because I can't listen to music while I write. I wish I could. I know a lot of people do, but I need kind of either complete quiet or I need to be somewhere where it's really chaotic, like a coffee shop, that white noise.
Right.
Um,
I find that I don't write well, and it's funny because in the first book I did write to music with lyrics, but I ended up starting to write to particular soundtracks or to particular movie scores. I mean, and it's just nothing but instrumental music, and some of it's very dramatic, depending
yeah.
on the movie that you download it from, and I find that I really enjoy writing to that because it's almost like white noise, but it does give you some kind of ambiance for what you're writing at the same time. So I found that that's good. I don't know if you've ever tried to write to that kind of music, but
Yeah, I do have a couple just instrumental tracks that are kind of good.
yeah. I'll tell you one of my favorites to write to actually is the movie score to the Twilight movies.
Oh, cool.
There's beautiful scores done in that. Plus, I know the movie so well that the songs just kind of sit with me good when I'm writing. So,
I'm gonna
and
have to look that up.
yeah. So, what do you think about the indie writing community and just the publishing community at a large? Have you found a nice niche in that? Do you feel like you've really built a good tribe within that?
Yeah, and it's still growing, which is awesome. And it's so weird because I didn't start writing until I was in my mid-30s, and I don't know, I guess most people probably don't think about changing their career path at that point in their life, but that's kind of what happened to me. And then as I first started writing, I thought, I really love writing, but this is such a solitary career choice, like you have to do it by yourself, and you're in your writing cave most of the time, and I'm always telling people, no talking, I'm writing. So now that I've started going to conferences, which was something totally new to me, I'm kind of building that tribe and meeting a lot of people. And Utopia was a huge kind of changing point for me about just meeting amazing people. And I have all these friends now that I can't believe I get to even call them my friends. They're amazing authors and bloggers and editors and publishers, and it's really cool to have that big community. And being an indie author, everyone is just so welcoming and helpful, and you really feel a part of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you have an agent? You
I
work with,
don't know.
and you are published through a publishing company?
We're published through Crown Atlantic Publishing, which is a publishing company that my husband and I founded.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's our own indie label.
Okay. So do you have plans of trying to get an agent to try to pitch this for possible movie rights or anything like that?
Yeah, I would love to. I kind of did it at the point when I was at the second book. I started querying agents, and I didn't really get. I got good responses, but it was just kind of this is not what we're looking for right now. So I kind of put that on the back burner and thought I want to finish the series. I felt like I had a responsibility to the fans that were waiting for the next book and the next book. So I want to finish the whole series and then kind of pitch it again and see where that takes me. And I'm working on an audiobook this year too, so that'll be the next thing. So we'll have the book and the audiobook, and then I guess movie rights are what's left.
So what's that been like? Are you finding your own voiceover talent and everything then?
Yeah, so that was one of my main goals of Utopia is I really wanted to do audiobooks. So I sat on that panel and that was great. I learned a lot. And so I kind of came home with this ambition, like that is my goal. I'm going to do an audiobook this year. So I really decided from everything I'd heard of about doing audiobooks that I kind of wanted to find my own voiceover actors and pay them up front so that I retain the rights 100% rather than going just right through ACX and Audible and doing profit share, which I know is great and easy to do because then it's no money up front. So this may be a little bit longer process, but I feel like in the long run I'll be happier this way. So I found an amazing couple that are great theater actors, and they're going to do both. It's going to be dual narrated. So I'll have someone to do the female and male voices, which I think will be really cool.
That will be cool.
They're starting October 1st, so we're kind of going back and forth.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's really fun. We're going back and forth with, pronunciations and all that kind of stuff. And I got to send them character descriptions so they kind of get in the mindset of what each character's like. So I think that'll be a really fun process.
Oh yeah, definitely. I hope that you'll share with us what that process has been like for you once it's done.
Definitely. I want them to kind of record little bits as they go so I can keep sharing that on my blog and my Facebook and stuff.
Oh, that would be fun. Do you have a target end date for that for it to be released?
I'm not sure. Since we haven't done it before, I feel like the first book is going to be the longest. They've signed on to do all 4 books in the series, so that's really cool because that was my big thing. I wanted the same narrator through the whole thing. So I think the first book will take us the longest because there'll be a learning curve, but then I think after that they should be faster. So I really have no idea.
I understand because it's hard to project, especially when the ball's all in your court. Because I did the same thing. I started my own publishing company, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot to do. So kudos to you, dear. So you said you had mentioned that you didn't start writing until you were in your 30s, but I thought I read in your author profile that your bio that you wrote when you were younger.
Yeah, I've always loved writing and wrote all the time when I was young, but I guess I mean professionally. Like I never thought that this could actually be a career for me.
Gotcha.
Which is weird because I was an English major, and that's kind of the reason that I got into speaking at schools because I always had the love for being a writer and just the written word and storytelling, but I did not have the confidence to think that I could actually be an author, that I could publish my own books. I think I had this idea that authors were just up here. They were, not anyone that you'd ever meet or know. So everything that I've learned in being an indie author has given me so much confidence and, kind of made me feel silly for being afraid for so long. So when I go and speak at schools, I always tell them, if you guys just wrote something today, you're a writer and you need to own that. And don't let fear stop you. Start writing now because I can't imagine where I would be if I started when I was their age,
Oh, I totally agree because I also wrote some when I was in middle school and high school, and I quit writing because I got recognition for my writing. And actually there were that and my photography and my horseback riding, all 3 I quit doing when I got recognition for them, when I got kudos for them. And I didn't continue writing anything at all. I just wrote like short stories and stuff for children, children's stories. I continued to write my poetry because I never shared my poetry. So that was something for some reason I felt was okay for me to still do. So I was 39 years old before I started writing again. So we're kind of in the same boat there.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I would love for you to talk to us real quick since you had brought it up about your traveling around to the schools. I know you just got back from a trip up in Pennsylvania, right?
Yes.
Tell
That
us a little bit about that.
That was great. I'm actually from Pennsylvania. I grew up there, so this was the first time I got to go home as an author, which was really crazy and awesome. And so I got to go back to my old high school, Lackawanna Trail, and just walking through the hallways there was just incredible. Everything was exactly the same, which made me happy because I have great memories from there, and I didn't want to walk in and see it be totally different.
Yeah,
Um, and it's a very small school, and it still is, and I loved that about it because they really foster your creativity and whatever path you might be interested in. They kind of give you the leeway to do that. So I do book a lot of school visits all over the U.S. I travel. Sometimes I do Skype visits, and I speak to grades 5th grade through 12th. I have a lot of different writing workshops or presentations where I kind of just talk about the importance of language arts and, just how it's this foundation for success. Even if you're not going to be a writer, it's just important to have those skills in your life and just how they can help you with your creativity and expressing yourself. So I do it kind of in a sneaky way because I introduce them to the books and the magic and myth and legends. So it's fun at the same time. It's not just someone standing in front of you and lecturing. And Lackawanna Trail was actually great because I spoke to 7th grade creative writers. So they all were really interested in writing to begin with. And at the end of the presentation, I always do questions and answers, and they had probably some of the best questions I've ever gotten, and they were asking me about publishing, and if I want to start writing now, what's your one piece of advice, and how can I market myself? So it was really cool to see that they're so inspired at that young of an age, and I just spoke to their media specialist today, and she said that they had such a great response of people coming up to her that I spoke to saying that they want to write a novel, that
Aw,
they've started the trail novel experience, so they're going to all kind of work on writing novels together, I think. So I loved hearing that.
that's fantastic. Do you ever have anybody come up to you, any kids come up to you that are just really jazzed, like particularly into it
Yeah,
before
and
you leave?
that like when someone comes up to you and hugs you saying that you've inspired them to write or your book did something positive in their life, I mean, I feel like it doesn't get better than that. That's just
Yeah,
amazing to me. I had 2 little 5th grade girls run down and say, "We read your book and we love it." And sometimes people on Instagram will send me like cute little things that the book made them think of, and it's just really cool seeing it out there and touching people's lives.
that is cool. So what is your advice for new writers, for budding authors?
Geez, just kind of like I said before, don't be scared. Do it. If you love it, just do it. And I think since I have only gone the indie route, I really am kind of pro indie. I like the ownership and control and putting it out there and kind of building that author platform. And that's one of my big words of advice is start building your author platform now, even before you've started writing, because it's only going to help you. And if people are along the journey with you, then they feel like they have ownership in that, and they're going to be even more excited to read your book when you publish it. So, that's what I told the students. I was like, start now. You can start a Facebook page as you, the author, and say, I want to write, and follow me on my path.
That's awesome. So what advice would you give aspiring authors about writer's block? Do you get it? And if you do, what do you do to get past it?
Yeah, I'm a procrastinator. It's terrible. I know I need to sit down and write, but I work from home, so I just do everything else that needs to be done, like the laundry or whatever. So just getting your butt in the chair every day, I'm learning I really need to treat it like a business, like I need to have office hours and just sit in front of the computer, turn the internet off, and just write. So that's half the battle is just making the time and making sure you do it. And I used to be of the belief, you hear people say write every day. And I kind of thought, okay, yeah, I have to do that. And then I'd feel really guilty if I didn't write. But I also feel like you need to make time to live because having those awesome life experiences are only going to give you more things to write about. So I'm kind of learning to have that life-work balance there. And sometimes when I am just actually sitting down and writing and doing what I'm supposed to do, I still have writer's block. So I definitely am really inspired by nature. So I'll just take the computer outside and sit out back. And I remember seeing leaves falling one time, and that inspired this whole idea for the Bellamorph tree in Secrets, the second book. And so had I not been outside watching leaves fall, that part of the story never would have been there. And that kind of drove a major part of the story. So I like to
Cool.
change my scenery.
Cool. Cool. Um, so what other projects do you have in your hopper? Are there any other things that you have planned after you get done with book 4?
Yeah, I went a little crazy and have a lot of projects going on this year. Um, I am writing prequel novellas for the Geneva Project. I just finished one which is kind of Remy and Geneva's Christmas story when they were younger, about like 8 and 9. So I'm going to release that around Christmas time. So kind of each couple of characters will get their own little prequel novellas, which have been really fun to write, and I think it can be a cool collection of stories for the Geneva Project. And then I have plans to do a spin-off series with the Geneva Project, kind of inspired by some of the legends and stuff like that. And then I've also started, I was doing the debut collective for Utopia, and I wrote a story for that, which is kind of a retelling of Shakespeare's Midsummer's Night Dream. So that's been really cool because I'm a huge Shakespeare fan, and as I wrote it, it's kind of this like drama queen meets Alice in Wonderland, and I kind of have all these ideas going for that now, or I think that could be its own series. So I have plans kind of for doing that. I'm co-authoring a middle grade book with Jamie Engel. It's really funny, comical, kind of high school nerds rule type of book. And I'm also doing an illustrated children's book with a really amazing author here in St. Augustine. And I'm working on a nonfiction, a couple nonfictions, actually 3 of them.
Oh, look at
So
you.
yeah, I'm a little crazy right now.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have a genre that you would like to write in, but you're afraid to? Because you don't feel like you could necessarily write in that genre?
Yeah, I love mystery thrillers like Dan
Me too,
Brown.
and I'm so scared to write one.
I know because I mean when I'm reading it and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that
Right?
coming. That's so amazing. I wish I could do that. I just don't think that I can. I mean, I haven't figured out how to weave that type of story, but that would be really cool.
Definitely. It's funny when I used to think when I was younger, when I was in high school, stuff, one day I'm going to write a book. And, I always had that thought in my head, even after I decided not to write for silly reasons. I still thought, one day I'm going to write a book. And I always thought that I would write a mystery thriller. That's what I thought I would write. And so when I sat down to write Inception, I didn't know what I was writing really, but it had a fantastical edge to it. I knew that, but I just sat down and started writing. All I had the idea was the main character and a basic idea of the plot. And so when I started writing, it turned out to be urban fantasy. I was like, okay, wow, I didn't know that was going to be coming out of me. So, but I've always also wanted to write in that thriller category with mystery, and it's really a different breed of story, I think, because like you said, you've got to weave all the mystery into it and put the surprises in just the right places, and so
Yeah.
that's something that intimidates me as well. Maybe one day we'll both write one of those suckers.
Yeah, we should take a workshop and figure out how to do it. I think that'd be really cool.
If you ever hear of one, you let me know because I'm game. I'm definitely game. So talk to me a little bit about what your writing process is like. Actually, first, what I wanted to ask you, 2 things before I forget. You told me at Utopia when I saw you there that your husband does the covers for your books. How did
Yeah.
that happen?
He's a graphic designer professionally. He has his own freelance company. So he is who I have to thank for making the book a book because, like I said, I thought I'm gonna write on my lunch break instead of read, and I didn't tell anyone I was writing because I thought, what if I don't finish it? What if it sucks? I
Right.
never want anyone to read it. So I waited till it was completely done, and I told my whole family at dinner one night. I said I wrote a book, and they all just kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And then I was like, no, really, I wrote a book. So he read it and he loved it, and I was kind of like, okay, well, you're my husband, you have to say that, you know. And he's like, no, I really do, and I think we should publish it. And I didn't know anything about it and just kind of thought, okay, well, whatever. And he figured out the whole aspect of the business side of it, of, you know, starting your own indie label and how to do it all through CreateSpace and Smashwords and formatted it. And I mean, I'm not techie and he is techie, so we definitely kind of
Go
helped
ahead.
each other out in that area.
That's so
Um,
great that you had that kind of support. That's really wonderful.
yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for him, really, I wouldn't be where I am today because I would have just left a document on my laptop and said, that was cool, I had fun writing that book, and who knows, maybe I would have never wrote another one. So, you know, he designed the cover, and it was so cool because he read the book, and that was the image that the book conjured for him. So when I saw it, that was my first kind of vision of what someone else could imagine from what I wrote, and it was like it was pulled from my mind, so that was really cool. And you know, he did the whole thing, and I just held the proof of the first book in my hand, and I was hooked. You know, I was like, okay, this is cool, we should do this.
That's fantastic. Okay, I've got one more question, actually more than one, but there's one other one I want to ask in particular, but I'm noticing that the time is kind of getting close to ending here. We've got a little over 15 minutes. So I wanted to know if Jolene, Annie, or JC, if you would like to chime in here and either put a question into the chat, or if you would just want to ask it directly, please feel free to do that. Anybody have a question for her about her books or her writing life, her awesome husband?
I've got one. This is Jolene.
Hi.
How did you decide, I mean, at what point in your writing and publishing your books did you decide to do the school visits and the Skyping with classrooms and stuff like that?
Let me see. I knew I'd always wanted to do it and had approached a couple schools, but it's definitely hard to get in. I find that all the schools really want you there, but it's hard for them to fit it in their schedule. They have so much testing and everything they have to do and have to get done. So, you know, when I got, yeah, we'd love to, but we'll get back to you a few times, I just kind of gave up. But I did this book event in New Smyrna Beach, and they had Friday day was when you went to the school, and they set you up with the school, and then Saturday was the signing in the community. So it was kind of like you got to meet all the students, and then they got invited to come to your book signing on Saturday. So they had the whole thing set up for me, and I went to this school in New Smyrna Beach, and it was my first time ever speaking in front of a group of kids, and I think I did 7 presentations to maybe 150 kids each time. So if I had any nerves or stage fright, it broke me right in. So, and it was an amazing experience. The kids were really cool. They had great questions. I mean, I had a kid come up and show me her journal of song lyrics that she was writing. And so I was just blown away by how much the kids really appreciated that and craved that insight and had all these great questions they wanted answered. So after I did that, I was like, okay, this is something I need to do and I love to do, and so I'm going to get back to calling those schools and, you know, make it a priority to get in there, whether I have to set it up for the next school year or not. So it's hard, but it's been worth it. And once you do get in, they always are so happy and grateful, and then they're like, okay, we need to set this up for next year. So it kind of just gets the ball rolling.
That's awesome. And I'm sure then that you can use them as references to other schools as far as, or maybe get them to write some kind of letter of reference. I'm sure they don't want to get calls all the time. But that's
yeah,
awesome.
I asked them for like a sentence or two testimonial, and I put it on my school visit site so that people can see what other teachers have said about my visit.
Cool. Anybody else have a question?
Hey, Christina, it's Jackie.
Hi.
Hi, I know I can ask you questions whenever I want, but what's the hardest part of your writing process when you sit down to write the Geneva project?
Finding my place is really hard. If I'm not writing every single day and there's time in between, I find I have to go back and reread. And instead of just rereading to get to the point where I need to start writing, I start changing stuff as I'm reading what I already wrote. So sometimes it's like shooting yourself in the foot because you're never moving forward. You're just fixing what you already have written. So it's really hard to break that habit for me. And I tend to try to write the whole story through, and then I go back through and add the layers of details and develop the characters more and make the dialogue, fit the character better, add like little snarky comments here or there. So it's hard to train myself to just leave it alone until I get back to that editing stage and just find my place to start again.
Cool. Hey, Jackie, I'm sorry I pronounced your name wrong. There's that cool husband that did all of that awesome stuff for you.
Everybody pronounces my name wrong.
Well, now I know. Does anybody else have a question? Okay, I'm going to ask another one, and if any of you want to jump in at any point after this part of the question is over, Q&A is over, just go ahead. Please feel free to offer up more questions for her. I would like to know if you have any kind of celebratory thing you do when you finish a book. Is there anything that you like to do to celebrate when you finish that first draft?
Yeah, we always just go out for dinner and have a big glass of wine.
Just one?
Yeah, I'm a lightweight. I only need one glass. But yeah, this past time we went out and just had a big glass of wine, and it was just like so awesome. You have that one moment of where you're just elated and giddy and excited, and then the next morning you realize you have to start editing it, and you're like, oh god. But yeah, I definitely like to celebrate it, and this is the first time I ever did a book launch party where I kind of just had a party for the books and celebrating that, I wrote these crazy books. And I don't know why, once I finally did it, I waited till I had 3 books out. I was like, man, I should have been doing this every time. I had it in Orlando, and it was really fun. Had a bunch of friends and family and readers all come out, and we had these adorable cupcakes made. Nicole Green made them, and they had my book cover on them. They were like the cutest things ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there like anything in particular that you like to do for writing rituals? Are there certain things that do you like to drink tea while you're writing, or coffee, or wine? Or...
I'm a coffeeaholic, so a lot of iced coffee down here in Florida. It's too hot during the day.
Yeah.
Hot coffee, but yeah, I love drinking coffee and eating chocolate-covered espresso beans while I'm writing. I like to have the caffeine buzz going. I think it makes me write faster.
Anything else?
Not really.
Or you said you don't like to listen to music because that distracts you.
Yeah, maybe some soundtracks, without words, but...
Yeah, so you do a lot of writing at the coffee shop then?
I did. So it's really weird. The first 2 books I was working full-time, and I almost had an easier time finding time to write then because I only had my lunch hour to work on the books. So I would go to Starbucks every day because it was right across from my office. So I always say fueled by Starbucks. And they were really cool because they knew I was writing the book, and they were so excited once I finished it that they wanted copies and stuff. So that was fun. And then with the 3rd book, I just write full time now. And like I was saying, it's so bad because I'm home all the time, and my husband works from home, so we just distract each other and procrastinate. So it's pretty funny. It's hard, and I always have other things to do, and I feel like once you have 3 books out, you have to spend all this time marketing them too. So that takes up a lot of time that I wish was writing time.
Yeah. Yeah. I that'd be
Is
anybody have a question? Hey, Jackie, can you mute yours?
Yeah.
Can you mute yours? Okay. Yeah, that's better. I think having her unmuted was causing a lot of feedback. Ooh, look, I figured out something techie after all. um, so what is it that you love most about writing?
I love the escape, the freedom to kind of go to all these places that you may not ever get to experience, whether you're writing about somewhere that exists or somewhere you're just making up from your imagination. Um, I feel like it's really the only place where magic truly does exist because you're just using letters to shape words that tell a story that no one else knew except for you. And when you put it out there and publish it for other people to read, it's incredible because they get to take that same experience as you, but it's also personal for them and it's different for each person. So I just love that. It's the same story, but it's different for each reader, and it means different things to different people. And as much as I procrastinate writing, every time I do actually sit down and get into the groove of it, I love it, and then I'm hooked, and I get on a roll. I really just enjoy that kind of escape from everyday reality every once in a while.
I couldn't hear what you just said, sweetie. I'm sorry, you're freezing on me.
Oh no. I was just saying, can you hear me now?
Okay, now you're kind of back.
Okay.
So what is it that is there something that you don't like?
The fear, of comparison to your other work, to other writers, just putting it out there in the world kind of opens you up. So you kind of have to have thick skin sometimes. So that's a little scary.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, well, cool. Does anybody else have any questions that they would like to ask Christina before we end this? Or Christina, is there anything else you would like to add?
I'm so glad you guys all wanted to read it for Utopia. That's really cool. I think it's going to be great that we'll all have this book club of all the books that we've read. So when we get together, it'll be even crazier. We'll have more book things to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be. I'm really hoping that it'll help us to really get to know each other better as readers and writers, and kind of give us a little bit more to connect with when we're there.
It was a great idea. Thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Oh, of course. I think that Janet said that she's planning on starting one as well sometime around the first of the year, I think she said.
Oh, cool.
So I don't know if I'll continue this one or not then, because I don't know that we would need to. Anyway, I'll talk to her about that. But thank you so much for spending some of your evening with us, and thank you so much for being a writer and sharing your mind and your creativity. That's so awesome to do, and us readers appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. I appreciate your time, too. And looking forward to our next book as well. And I can't wait to read book 2. Thank you so much. You guys have a great night.
Thanks, you too.